Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk a bit about the bloodbath that we're seeing in altcoins. So I'm showing you here is the total market cap of everything minus Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I've also excluded the biggest stablecoins, USDT, USDC. I've excluded their market cap. So by and large, this is just altcoins that we're looking at, the total market cap of altcoins. What you can see is in the last day, this is down about 11%. As I record this currently, basically retesting the lows back from December and January of, December 22, January of 23. Now it has bounced notably from that. If we just look at the size of this wick as I record this the morning of the June 10th, then we're up about 6.6%-ish from the bottom of that wick. But certainly a bloodbath. If we just look at a heat map across crypto, we can see that Bitcoin and Ethereum haven't done as badly, but when you look at altcoins, they're down pretty hard. And some of them, like Matic, for example, down over 20%. Litecoin down 14, Solana down 14.67. Absolutely brutal, pretty much across the board. You really have to dig deep to find any that are green, and these are just kind of random small cap altcoins that you may or may not have even heard of. By and large, this is across the board that altcoins have been getting absolutely destroyed today. And of course, if we're just looking at what might have triggered this, I think the SEC regulatory issues is what obviously comes to mind with a lot of altcoins being labeled as securities. Then even altcoins that weren't labeled as being securities, people probably think that's just a matter of time. And so in general, altcoins have become a relatively unattractive investment, especially for potentially larger institutions who might be more worried about compliance and regulatory issues, at least here in the United States. And so this has not been a good day for altcoins, and we've seen a lot of blood. But as I mentioned, there's kind of conspicuously, Bitcoin has not participated as nearly as badly in this dump. It's down 3%, which is not great, but it's nothing compared to 20% like Matic saw. And again, Matic being a relatively large cap altcoin. And even Ethereum also only down about 5.3% here. So not getting hit nearly as hard. And I suspect part of the reason why they've been spared is Bitcoin, for sure, people aren't really worried about being labeled as security. That's the only crypto asset that Gary Gensler, the SEC commissioner, has said is not a security. And so that is unlikely to change. And so people, it's kind of been spared from that. And ETH is probably another one that a lot of people think might be more likely than other ones to not be targeted by that, or at least, the very least, it would be harder to kind of get that to stick, that ETH is security. So these have been holding up relatively well. But some people have been arguing that this was coming no matter what. So even if the SEC kind of catastrophe hadn't happened, with them labeling all these altcoins as being securities, a lot of people were saying this is just what happens in these cycles, that altcoins tend to bleed against Bitcoin, bleed against Ethereum, and that even if we didn't get this catalyst to kind of set it over the edge, just a matter of time. It just might have taken longer to get there, but we were going to the same destination anyway. Certainly is possible. And one of the things that we need to remember about altcoins is that the majority of them are not going to survive, or at least not going to make new all-time highs. We talked about this before. What I'm showing you here is a historical snapshot from back right around the top of the 2017-2018 bull market. So this is right around when altcoins were popping off, getting close to their all-time high prices, a lot of them. And what you'll notice is that in the kind of the top ranks here, you'll recognize a decent number of the names. Some of them, aren't really talked about nearly as much, or have fallen way off. But then as you get down into some of these, once you get down past the top 20 or so, a lot of these become a lot less recognizable. And today, a lot of these are ones like Dragon Chain, for example, or Komodo, which people haven't really heard of. They still exist. They might still be around, but they're a shadow of their former self. They never got anywhere near their highs that they put in during the 2017-2018 bull markets. And they're more or less dead chains that aren't really interesting, aren't going to do anything exciting, probably going to more or less just trend towards zero. And that's just the fate of these altcoins. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that the same thing's going to happen again, that all the altcoins that we saw popping off in 2021, and both in the spring and in the fall, some of them will make it. Some of them will be around, like what happened here, but a lot won't. Or if they are still around, they're going to be a shadow of their former self, never even make it back to their all-time highs, much less put in new ones. And we've talked about that before. It's something that you have to always keep in mind with altcoins. So whenever you're thinking about altcoins in a bear market, something I've said a lot is the first question that I always ask myself is there even a reasonable expectation that this is going to be around come the next bull market? That's the first kind of question. And for a number of them, it's hard to say yes. For a number of them, it's just kind of vaporware or all promise or hype. Then what's really is there to necessarily convince us that, yes, for sure, this is going to be around for the next bull market to really cash in? And then even if it's around, you have to ask the question, do I think there's a reasonable chance it could set a new all-time high? Are there reasons inherent to the asset that would make it likely to do that? And if that's not really the case, then again, why would you be looking at it in a bear market if it's not really likely to be doing that? And so it's really going to be those few, kind of a few select altcoins that have been around from the last cycle that will go on to put in new highs in the next cycle. And that's kind of the game with altcoins, is being able to figure that out. And so that's one of the things that people a lot of times have talked about, is that in a bear market, it's always a risk to be playing around too much with altcoins, because they can always go lower. As low as they go, as cheap as they seem, they can always go lower and really fall off a cliff. I don't know if altcoins are going to hold the bottom from January, December, or if this is going to keep going lower. Time is yet to see. But there's always that possibility. Or something like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they've at least shown a propensity to every cycle be able to attract more value and go on and put new all-time highs. Not to say that's guaranteed to continue happening, but that's probably a more reasonable expectation with something like Bitcoin, which has done it many times now. If we just go and look at Bitcoin's all-time chart, it's constantly been putting these massive bull markets, bear markets, bull markets, bear markets, but every single time been going on and setting a new all-time high. Eventually that might break, but so on and so forth, or so far that trend has continued. Whereas with altcoins, it's far from guaranteed that they're going to continue to do that every single cycle, or that they're even going to make it to the next cycle. Now, all that being said, one of the things we can also look at, though, is that, is this blood in the water likely to just continue? I think today feels very raw, and there's a lot of emotion, and people think, all right, that's it. Altcoins are doomed. All of them are going to go set, new lows. They're going to crash back down to way lower prices. This is it. Maybe, but one of the things that oftentimes happens in these kind of extreme events where there's a lot of likely forced selling that's contributing to these sell-offs, when you see something down like Matic, down 21%, that there can be some mean reversion that will happen. And so it wouldn't surprise me if an asset like Matic, which does have reasonable fundamentals for an altcoin, there's a lot of different partnerships it's had, a lot of use that it's seen. It's not just total vaporware, at least in my personal opinion. It would not surprise me to see this kind of set a bottom and then have a reasonable rally back to the upside for some of these levels. And you'd better believe that if that happens, what you're going to see on crypto Twitter or on YouTube is all these people showing up suddenly and saying, I knew it. I called it from the very beginning. Didn't you wish that you had bought in at these low levels? Haha, I made all this profit. Basically pretend that they played everything perfectly, that they sold up here, they bought in up here, and they played that bounce perfectly, etc., etc. Now, most likely, most of them will not have actually done that. They're just doing that to try to gain clout, get people to think that they're a better trader than they actually are. But one of the things I want to bring up with that is that in some ways, does it really matter what goes on down here? So with Matic, let's say, for example, let's imagine that you believe, or that one believes, that Matic will go on to set new all-time highs in the next bull market. If we just go back and look at Matic's past, this whole range here, look at how extreme amount of volatility Matic experienced in this kind of sideways range. We had single kind of candles, or just a couple days where Matic was down, 70%. The March 2020 crash, obviously there it fell 77% again. And then even from here down to this ultimate bottom here, it was down about 65%, which at the time would probably feel absolutely catastrophic. And then, there'd probably be a lot of people talking about it, say, don't you wish you would have sold up here? Oh, and now look how much genius I am riding this up, etc. When we look at that today, we just see one big accumulation zone before the actual move. And so all that emotion, all that blood, sweat, and tears, all that hand-wringing, and all that kind of clout achieving or trying to gain clout from people back at this time ultimately looks relatively meaningless in light of what ended up happening next. And so if it's the case that Matic can stick around and set a new all-time highs in the next bull market, the same kind of thing would probably apply here, where people would kind of generally see this as just one big kind of accumulation range of decent value before going off to the upside. Now, of course, that's not the guarantee that Matic will do that. And of course, we just talked about how with altcoins, you never make that assumption that they're going to do it. But I just want to bring that up because I think what is really toxic that happens, I see it all the time in crypto Twitter and on YouTube, is with all of these kind of short-term movements, there's a lot of people who are going to be talking about them and then making people kind of feel bad or like they missed out. That you missed the boat here, that everyone was predicting that this dump was going to happen, and so, oh, you're so dumb for not having sold there. And then, oh, everyone was expecting the kind of the rebound that might happen. For example, like down here, this rebound, like, oh, of course that was going to happen. I saw it a mile away. I bought down here and I sold up here. That kind of thing happens all the time. You see it all the time. And what it does is it kind of feeds into that emotion cycle that leads people to make the absolute worst decisions in terms of when to buy and sell, where people say, well, I might have missed the worst of this selling here, but there's more to come because everyone's super bearish right now. I should sell my Matic down here. Then it rebounds and everyone's saying, oh, look at these people who missed this move. And you say, well, I missed that move, but I'll catch it as it goes off, higher as everyone gets bullish. And then, you hold and you end up coming down here and you sell again, so on and so forth. That's how you sell the bottom, buy the top. And really what's kind of toxic about the way that a lot of influencers on crypto Twitter and on YouTube will talk about these things is that they're feeding into that motion cycle. And they're making you feel bad about it. You're making you feel like you were kind of the dumb one for having missed these moves. And it was, obvious to them. And if you just would have, been listening, even though they never actually said anything, before as a warning, that, oh, you could have played this perfectly like they supposedly did themselves, which most of the time they actually haven't. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's going to be happening a lot in the next few days. There's going to be a lot of emotions throwing around there. Certainly there's going to be influencers trying to gain clout on what's just happened. But really in the grand scheme of things, what's happening right now is not really all that unexpected for an altcoin. If we look at Matic, we just talked about how it has had extreme volatility back here. It's totally reasonable to expect to have extreme volatility here. And I think the bigger question with something like Matic or any altcoin, if you think about it more as a long-term investment, is those two key questions that I brought up at the beginning. Will it survive the next bull market? And if it does, do you think that it has enough in the tank to actually go to new all-time highs? Is there enough fundamental value or just community built up around it or whatever the case may be that could send it up higher? And then that's kind of going to be the more important analysis, in my opinion. Obviously not financial advice. You should make of this as you will. Make decisions that you think are best. That's just how I'm thinking about it. But really, until we kind of get beyond this phase, there's going to be a lot of chop here. And in a lot of ways, that's where, assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum often look at the, as, it's hard to call any crypto asset safe, but kind of the more relatively, quote unquote, safe assets to be in. And then really with altcoins, what tends to happen is that they kind of don't do a whole lot and they can have some kind of negative price action. Matic kind of went sideways. A lot of altcoins actually went down throughout this whole kind of step here. And then they go crazy to the upside. And so a lot of times with altcoins, it's limited benefit necessarily of worrying too much about the chop. And then it's really just about accumulating before that big bull market happens is where the main kind of meat of the moves happens. And everything else is kind of just a lot of people wringing their hands with something which ends up looking in hindsight like not that big of a deal. So kind of to wrap it up then, what I wanted to talk about today was that what happened, I think, was catalyzed by the SEC. And so that was in some ways a bit of a black swan event that, just a month or two ago was harder to expect that this was just necessarily going to happen. Although, obviously there's always a possibility the SEC could come out and do something like this. But then this is just the way that things go in these phases of the market, where even if Bitcoin and Ethereum are looking relatively bullish, that altcoins don't necessarily need to follow suit, and they can have some pretty nasty volatility, just look at all the way through here. And then, maybe if they're some of the lucky ones, they're going to be the ones that make it to the next bull market and have a really nice move to the upside. But I just think that that's one of the things with altcoins, that anytime that you think about altcoins in a bear market or in a potentially accumulation between a bear market into a new bull market, always with that possibility that altcoins can continue to fall further. Even if Bitcoin and Ethereum are getting bullish, doesn't mean that all altcoins are going to follow suit immediately. And then it's really that question of which ones are going to be the few that make it. Because again, we just look back in history, a lot of them do not do anything special going forward. And so that's where you just need, I think with altcoins, it just takes a more cautious approach to not just blanket think that because Bitcoin and Ethereum are being bullish, that all altcoins are going to be bullish, that all altcoins can make new all-time highs. And then, of course, not getting married to any altcoin. You can imagine someone who got married to Dragon Chain back in 2017, 2018, was very disappointed, going into the next cycle. And that's probably going to happen to a lot of other altcoins too, where you're going to have certain people get married to that altcoin. They can't conceive of it not doing well in the next cycle, and then lo and behold, it doesn't do well, and then they kind of get left behind, or it even dies before that even comes there. And so that's one of the risks that's inherent here with a lot of these projects. So today was just a good reminder of that, I think, with altcoins. And this is something that we've talked about before as well, that most altcoins will not survive, and it's these kind of things that can happen that can absolutely destroy them, whereas assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, while not unscathed, are much less impacted by those types of things. All right, if you like the content, or subscribe to the channel, give the video a like and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there. And as a quick reminder, on June 13th, coming up next week as I record this, we're going to be launching our Polarity Digital Pro subscription service. So that's going to be a subscription service where you're going to get access to all the different metrics and models that we have currently on our website, polaritydigital.io. Link in the description. It's a website we've launched in collaboration with Jay over at Daily Crypto Analysis. Also link to his channel in the description. And basically what it's going to give you is not just full access to all the models that we currently have on here, but a number of new ones. We're going to have a forecast model, which gives a probability estimate of how likely an asset's price is going to be above or below its current price in 6 months. Then also some macro trend models that can help identify if Bitcoin is in a bull or a bear market, in addition to new assets that we'll be adding support for all of our different models, and exclusive content. So if you're interested in that, we're going to be having a one-day sale on the 13th where you can lock in a subscription rate of $10 per month, which we think is an absolute bargain. And we really are doing that one-day sale to give a chance for everyone who's been following us for a long time, really supporting us, to lock in a really low level. It will never be that cheap again after that day. The price will bump up. So if you're interested, mark your calendar for June 13th.